You know, when you try to talk about something that will already be finished at some point in the future, it kind of sounds like time travel, right? But it's something we do all the time. By this time next year, I will have what? Maybe it's finished my project or been studying English. Well, there's a specific grammar for this, and today we're going to master it together. So let's dive in.
All right, here's our game plan. We're going to start with the main idea. Then we'll look at our two key tools, the future perfect and the future perfect continuous. After that, it's your turn to practice, and we'll wrap it all up with the single most important takeaway. It's a really clear path to getting this down.
So first things first, let's get our heads around the core concept. We're talking about actions that aren't just happening in the future, but will be completely done before another point in the future.
This is the big question, isn't it? It's not about what you will be doing. It's about what you will have done. And that's a really crucial difference. Luckily, English has some perfect grammar designed to handle exactly this.
Okay, our first tool in the toolbox is the future perfect tense. I want you to think of this as your go-to for focusing on the result, the accomplishment, the finished product of a future action.
So the whole point here is that this tense sets up 2 points in the future. There's the action, and then there's a later time by which that action will already be over and done with. It's kind of like looking back on something, but from a future perspective. Pretty cool, right?
And you want to know the best part? The formula is so simple and it always works the same way. It's just will have plus the past participle of your verb. Words like finished, gone, or eaten.
And just look at how logical this is. To make a positive statement, you say, I will have finished. For a negative, you just use the contraction, won't. I won't have finished. And to ask a question, just flip the first 2 words. Will you have finished? It's a really clean, predictable pattern.
And here it is in the real world. We use this tense all the time for goals and big life milestones. Notice those key phrases that set the deadline. By the end of July, by the time I'm 60. The action, graduating, retiring, it's all going to be completed before that future point in time.
All right, let's move on to our second tool, which builds right on top of the first one. If the future perfect is all about the result, the future perfect continuous is all about the journey. The time you spend getting there.
The key word to remember here is continue. This tense really puts the emphasis on an ongoing action that leads right up to a specific moment in the future. So you're not just talking about the end, you're highlighting how long that action has been going on.
Now the formula is a little bit longer, but it's just as logical. We add been, and then we use the ing form of the verb, which, as you know, is always a signal for a continuous action. So you get things like will have been studying or will have been working.
And just like before, the structure is super consistent. For a positive statement, I will have been studying. For a negative, I won't have been studying. And for a question, will you have been studying? That core structure stays the same, which makes it way easier to remember.
You see the pattern here, right? These examples have phrases that spell out the duration. For 4 years, for 17 years. That is your big clue. When you see phrases that talk about a length of time, you're probably dealing with the future perfect continuous.
All right, theory is one thing, but practice is where it really clicks. So now it's your turn. Let's look at a few sentences and see if you can fill in the blanks. You got this.
Okay, first one up. How would you ask this question using the future perfect? Think about that formula we just talked about. Take a second. And there it is. Will you have finished? Perfect. We're asking about the completion of the report by a specific point in time, the deadline. Great job.
Okay, next up, let's try a negative statement. How would you say that she will not be done with her work in 3 hours?
Exactly right. She won't have finished, or you could say will not have finished. Again, the focus is on the result. The work is not going to be complete.
All right, last one for practice. Pay really close attention to all the clues in this sentence. What's the key piece of information here?
Yes, the big clue was for 3 years. That phrase, that tells you the duration, means we need the continuous form. We're emphasizing the length of time we've been living there. So we will have been living. You nailed it.
So after going through all of that, what's the one thing you absolutely have to remember? Well, it all boils down to one simple, single distinction. This slide really says it all, doesn't it? The future perfect is all about the completed result. Boom! I will have read this book. The action is done. But the future perfect continuous? That's about the time you put in.
I will have been reading this book for 10 days. It's all about completion versus duration. This is the question you can just ask yourself every single time. If your main point is the finish line, use the future perfect. If your main point is the marathon you ran to get there, use the future perfect continuous. It's that simple.
And that brings it all back to you. See, this grammar isn't just a bunch of rules. It's how we talk about our goals, our ambitions, our progress. So really, think about it. What story do you want to tell about your future? What will you have accomplished by this time next year?